Hey everybody, this is Peter B. Well, hot stove baseball is among us, being the off season in the winter, and we're all talking about who's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, but we're also talking about player movement, which players are going to be traded to help out their new teams, and where are the remaining free agents going to sign. And it's been like that always through baseball. Players traded to new teams, start the season with their new team, the following season with a new team. And believe it or not, baseball cards have been there right along from the very beginning. So what I want to do is talk about traded cards and traded subsets and traded sets throughout the history of baseball cards. And we're going to go all the way back to the first baseball set, the 1887 to 1890 and 172 Old Judge. And because it was produced for 3 years, they're actually traded cards, even though you may not have known that. Many players were depicted with one team when it first came out, and then in later print runs, they were depicted with a second team. For example, Hall of Famer Dan Brothers. Now, the cards, I wish I could show you every single card I'm about to talk about, but cards like this, very rare and very expensive, so best I can do is show you a photo of it. So Dan Brothers' card came out, he's a Hall of Famer, with Detroit, and that's what's on the left. And it says on the bottom, Brothers, first base, Detroit. A very nice card. But then later print runs show him with Boston. And what they did, they removed the Detroit, and now he's with Boston. They did Carruthers, first base, Boston's. Not really coming in, but trust me. Basically the same photo. Cropped a little differently, but the same photo. And like I said, the first card shows him with Detroit, and he later went to Boston. So they just went into the dock room and changed it to Boston's. Like I said, cropped a little differently, but basically the same image was used for both cards. And another famous Hall of Famer, they actually issued a different card to acknowledge the team change. And that is King Kelly. King Kelly is his Old Judge card from Chicago. And notice it says $10,000 Kelly. Well, Kelly was actually traded to Boston for $10,000. So it kind of acknowledges the trade, but shows him with his original team, the Chicago White Stockings. But like I said, he was traded to Boston, and a slightly different pose, similar, but slightly different. And let's see if I can get this in focus. Still says $10,000 Kelly, but now his uniform is Boston. I believe that's the original photo. And that's a similar photo, but I believe that's edited to say Boston. Because you can tell he's wearing the same exact tie and same exact uniform, just they edited it in the dark room to say Boston. So there is an example of another traded card going all the way back to the 1877-90 N172 Old Judge set. So like I said, these trades made appearances on baseball cards from the very beginning. And all the major sets that were collected pretty much have them. I'm not going to take you to T206s. There have been a couple of player movements, but I actually have one. T206, issued 3 years, 1909 to 11. And this is a card of Frank Smith. The original card says Smith Chicago Americans. And notice he's in the Chicago White Sox uniform. But then they came out in another print run and acknowledged Boston Americans. I don't know why they didn't remove Chicago, but they said Chicago and Boston Americans. Same card, same image. They just added the Boston Americans. So I'll pull the bear back. So even T206s, they have player movements. And here is one example. Frank Smith. Going to 1911, T205s. We have two players originally printed as Boston Rustlers. Get them in focus. We have David Sheen, Boston Rustler. And the back, David Sheen. And we have Peaches Graham as a Boston Rustler. And the back, George Graham, Peaches Graham. But in February, these were done in 1911. February 25th, 1911, Sheen was traded to the Chicago Cubs. So all they did is remove the Boston logo and put a little Cub there and changed it from Rustlers to Cubs. Backs are the same. They did no notation difference in the back. They just changed the front. So like I said, he was traded February 25th, 1911. So obviously this guy was made probably before February 25th. And just like Sheen, Peaches Graham was traded on June 10th, 1911. So there's his original Boston Rustler. And there's the new Chicago Cubs. Exact same thing happened. They took off the B and put the Cub and changed the name from Rustlers to Cubs. No back change. So T205s have traded cards in this set. (1914) Cracker Jacks. A very famous Hall of Famer. 1914 print run of Cracker Jacks. Featured Nap Lajoie as a Cleveland American. Notice it says Cleveland on his uniform. And on the bottom says Cleveland American. That's the 1914 Cracker Jack. But 19, and it's card number 66. But he was traded to the Philadelphia A's. Still card 66, but the 1915 version, they removed the Cleveland from his uniform and put Philadelphia Americans as his team. So even Crackerjack cards have traded player, depicts the traded team in them. I don't have anything to show you. I didn't print out pictures, but the 1921 to 27 exhibit cards. And maybe Scott from Stukes Baseball and Curiosities have these. I wish I had them. But in 1921, Ty Cobb is depicted, a very nice photo on the exhibit card, as a Detroit Tiger, as everyone knows, Ty Cobb, a Detroit Tiger. And Tris Speaker as a Cleveland Nap, or a Cleveland team. In 1927, they used the exact same image, but on the bottom where it originally said Detroit and Cleveland, they changed Ty Cobb to say Philadelphia Americans, and Speaker went to the Washington Senators. So this little name on the team name on the bottom was rewritten. Exact same photos. And those are the exhibit cards. Now even Gowdy, 1933 Gowdy, has a traded card in its set. At least one that I know of, I'm going to tell you. And that is Lefty O'Doul. I'll try to get in focus. So Lefty O'Doul is depicted on card number, what is that, 58, as a Brooklyn Dodger. And a nice picture, hole in the bat. But then later in the print run on card number 232, he's depicted as a New York Giant. So even 33 Gowdies have a traded card in its set. And like I said, I wish I had all the cards I'm showing you today. They're fantastic cards. And just like the Gowdies, Diamond Stars from 35-36 had traded cards. One of them is card number 30, Heine Minouche. And he's depicted with the Washington Senators. And you can see there's a W on his cap and a W on his sleeve. With W on sleeve is the description of the card. Well, he was traded to, and it says 1935 Diamond Star. Well, he was traded to the Boston Red Sox. They kept the number 30, but they removed the W from his hat and a W from his sleeve. And one back on the back it says Washington Center, and the other back says Boston Red Sox. So even the Diamond Stars from the 30s show the player movement in an updated traded card. Moving to 1954. Redmond has a traded card. And here we have Hall of Famer George Kell with a nice Boston Red Sox hat, the plain white uniform. And it says George Kell, third base, Boston Red Sox. Well, he was traded to the White Sox. So in a later print run, they changed it. Same image. They just airbrushed the B out and put in the socks. And they even added pinstripes. And actually, they did a pretty good job with this, unlike those airbrush from the 60s and tops. Real good job airbrushing. So there's the original Red Sox. And there's his traded card, unbeknownst to you, with the Chicago White Sox. Now we're going to move to 1966 tops. The Bob Uecker, card number 91, with his St. Louis Cardinals. And the front remains the same. It's card number 91. And the numbers don't change. The front remains the same. But a line in the back of the card is changed in later print runs. On the very bottom in the description, it says, Bob was traded to the Phillies October 27, 1965. So there's a version without that line. I think that's the rarer of the two. I'm just guessing, but I think that is the rarer. And then Bob was traded to the Phillies. So the 1966 tops has a traded card that many people don't even realize. Now, 1969, there is a card of Don Clendon. Let's see if I can make it stand up without knocking everyone down. Now, this one has a backstory to it. Clendon played for the Pirates in 1968. And in the card, you can actually see his Pirates hat, and they airbrushed the P off it. And that's the Pirates uniform, the gold and black trim. So Clendon played for the Pirates in 68. At season end, they had the expansion draft. And he was actually picked up by the Montreal Expos. So at the end of the season, after the draft, Montreal Expos chose him from the Pirates. But 3 months later, he was traded to Houston just before the season. So Topps created the card, airbrushed the P, and made him a Houston Astro. Problem, however, is that the Houston manager had been very racist to his black players. And Clendon refused to report to Houston and even threatened to retire rather than go to Houston. So Houston and Montreal reworked the deal, and Clendon remained as a Montreal Expo. So he never played a single game as a Houston Astros, and his 1969 card depicts him as a Houston Astro. But Topps, same number, card 208. Card 208, same exact back. Last showing him as a Pirate. Topps went and changed the card to Houston. Changed the color in the round bubble up top. And instead of having Houston, they put Expos. And so here is a trade that never happened, the original. And here is a trade back to the Expos. So this is actually a traded card. 1969. Now, 1971 has an interesting card. Al Downing of the Milwaukee Brewers. Now here, some kid in 1971 bought a pack of cards, opened it up, and saw Al Downing of the Brewers. And he or she said, wait a minute, Al Downing plays for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He doesn't play for the Milwaukee Brewers. So they decided to make their own card, scratch off the Brewers, and handwrote Los Angeles Dodgers. And this is a 71, the nice green backs you see on the 71 tops. So he created, or she, their own card, depicting the correct team of Al Downing. Well, if this youngster lived in Canada, wouldn't have to do that. Because OPG started to put the recently traded description on the cards. So same image as the Milwaukee Brewers. The team name change from Brewers to Dodgers. And little addition of text, recently traded to Dodgers. And you got the OPG yellow versus the tops green. And OPG would later come and continue to use that format of recently traded on their cards. So this, even though it shows the picture as a Brewer, does have the correct team, but his American counterpart, kid, had to create his own card. That was 1971. 1973, at the last print series of cards, Topps actually made traded cards. There is a Rick Wise card. Where was he traded in exchange for Steve Carlton? So Carlton went to the Phillies, and Rick Wise went from the Phillies to the Cardinals. So there is a Phillies card in the normal set of 1972. 72 or 73? I think these may be 73s. No, they're 72s. 72, sorry. 1972. Rick Wise traded. In the high series, this is 756. And there are 3 Hall of Famers in the 72 traded subset. There's Joe Morgan. He was traded from Houston to the Reds. So there was a Houston Joe Morgan card in 72 normal set. And the last series printing, this is 752, shows him with his new team, the Reds, with a traded stamp on it. And there were 2 more Hall of Famers. I don't have their cards. They are Steve Carlton, showing him with his new team, the Phillies, as well as Frank Robinson, who was a Oriole, and it now shows him as a Dodger. So that's 1972. Now in 1974, the traded card subset came back. They look fairly similar to the 72s. And they say Cecil Upsaw traded, and once again has a little newspaper type article about him being traded. And they got Craig Robinson traded to the Atlanta Braves. And Jim Ray traded to the Detroit Tigers. Ron Schuler traded to the Phillies. George Mitterwald traded to the Cubs. And Terry Crowley traded to the Dodgers. I thought there was a... I'm sorry. I thought there was a Hall of Famer in the 74 traded set. Juan Marshall, I believe it is. He was traded to Boston. I think he's the only Hall of Famer. There may be another. But there's a Juan Marshall card I know traded to the Red Sox. Now, some other almost team movement happened in 1974. The San Diego Padres weren't doing too well financially. And so they were thought of being sold. And there were very strong rumors they were going to be sold to Washington and become the Washington, I didn't have a name yet, so Topps just called them Washington National League. So there's the Padres team photo with the San Diego logo in front. They're wearing their San Diego Padre uniforms. But there was rumored they were going to Washington, so Topps printed these cards. Well, Ray Kroc of McDonald's fame came in and bought the team and kept them in San Diego. But still, this print run happened. Now, here's the only Hall of Famer, Willie McCovey, showing the National League version. There could be a Hall of Famer for being a manager. I doubt it, but he definitely has good qualifications. That's Cito Gaston. And you got Fred Kendall. And Randy Jones, who was a very good pitcher during this time. Glenn Beckert. Bill Grief. Rich Troutson. Dave Hilton. Rich Morales. Dave Roberts. Nate Colbert. Vincente Romo. Johnny Grubb. And they even had a rookie card. Notice upper right, Dave Friedman, Washington. So they made the first print run depicting these cards, that's the whole set, showing Washington National League. They did change it, and all the cards I just showed you later say the correct San Diego Padres. Now there's one card you did not see from 1974. That's a San Diego Padre. And it would be amazing if he was included. I don't know why, because supposedly in 1974 was the first year Topps did not print series, but printed and distributed all the cards at once. But we're missing Dave Winfield, and that's his rookie, showing him as a San Diego Padre. That would be amazing if they printed him as a Washington National. I'm sure the price of that card will be a lot more than his Padre rookie card. So now move on to 1976. Just like 74, they did another traded subset. Only one Hall of Famer, and that's Fergie Jenkins going to the Boston Red Sox. And once again, they did this kind of news type back. So that's the only Hall of Famer in the subset. And they got a bunch of them. I'm only going to show you three. Here's Rusty Staub. They traded Le Grand Orange from Montreal to Detroit. And then probably the most famous traded card of them all, Oscar Gamble with his afro, showing him to become a Yankee. So just like 1974, 1976 did this little traded subset. I'm going to skip to, I'm going to skip a little bit. Now, I'm going to go to 1986, but we're going to go back. But 1986 is the wood grain Topps card, Reggie Jackson, showing him as a California Angel from Topps, number 300. But just like that kid in 1971 who opened up the Al Downing card out of his pack, Reggie's not an angel. Reggie's an Oakland A. So you can see OPG. Notice Topps on the lower left, OPG. Has him as a Oakland A. Same exact image, still showing him in his Angels uniform. But the front says Oakland A's. And they got that little traded notation now with the A's. And like I said, for a few years, OPG did this. I don't know when they started. 1971, Al Downing's kind of like a fluke. I don't know when they started doing this, but they've been consistent for a while. Showing the card with the new team. And number 300, number 300. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to go back to 1981. 1981 is when Topps issued a traded box set. You're looking at a 1985. I don't have the 1981, but that's what it looked like. It just, I think it was in red. And instead of 1985, it says 1981. That was the first year they did that. Now, this is also the birth of rookie cards around that time. So not only did the cards inside this box depict stars or non-stars being traded, it also depicted the first rookie cards. And they had to come up with a term. They're actually called extended rookie cards. In 1981, some of the trades, you have Joe Morgan as a Giant. He went from he has a red card in the normal set and a Giant in this 1981 traded box set. and Dave Winfield. You have Dave Winfield as a Padre in the normal set, and you also got Dave Winfield in the 1981 traded set. But because rookie cards were also becoming very, very, very popular as they are today, you also had rookie Tim Raines of the Montreal Expos in the 81 traded box set. And you had Fernando Valenzuela in the traded box set, first card of his own. Now, I do have a 1985, and that's what you're looking at. And that's the box. And inside the box, you see Ricky Henderson as a Yankee coming over from the A's. So that's his first Yankee card. And you got Gary Carter as a Met coming over from the Expos. There weren't many good rookies in the 1985 traded set. Ozzie Guillen may be the most recognizable one. But you did have some Hall of Famers. The two I show here. Plus you had Don Sutton as an Oakland A. And you have Bruce Sutter as an Atlanta Brave. And you even got the second coming of Earl Weaver as a Baltimore Oriole. Weaver managed the Orioles through their prime years, and then he retired for a couple of years, but then he came back in 1985. Thus, they had to make a new Earl Weaver, or a first Earl Weaver card in this traded set. So you see, I took you through a journey going all the way back to the first baseball card set, Old Judge in 1887, up to today. Oh, well, I stopped at 1985, but into the 80s. And like I said, baseball cards have been right along, showing the trades that happened probably during the winter or early in the season. So they had to come out and do a new card or change the existing card showing a new team. Now, there was a big trade in 1973, but Topps did not show it on a baseball card, and nor did they mention it, and will never mention it on a baseball card. And that trade in 1973 involved Fritz Peterson of the Yankees and Mike Kekik of the Yankees. And these are their 73 cards. Now, Peterson and Kekik, both Yankee pitchers, have been with the Yankees a couple of years. And in 1973, the big trade occurred between Peterson and Kekik. And they actually traded their lives, one for the others. They traded wives, pets, homes, cars, everything. Peterson moved into Kekik's house with his wife and pets and everything else. And Kekik moved into the Peterson household and took on his wife and everything else. This happened for a few years. The new Kekik family did not work out, and they later separated. I don't know whether they ever got married, so I don't want to use the term divorce, but they separated. But the Petersons worked out well, and to this day, The new Peterson family still exists. He's with the former Mrs. Keykick. So they are still together. Now, the Yankees, when this broke news, weren't too keen about this, having this kind of publicity for the team. So Steinbrenner, like 2 years later, sent them both packing to the Cleveland Indians to get rid of them. So that is probably the biggest trade that ever happened, actually trading one's life for another. But you won't find it on any baseball card. So the best we can do is show you the 1973 Fritz Peterson and Mike Keykick card. So, hey, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something about how the history of baseball cards did indeed showed player movement via trades or free agency. And I know we went kind of long, but there was a lot to explain. And thank you very much if you're still with me. Goodbye.